Hey guys, and welcome back to a new video. And in today's video we are going to be covering an interesting topic that has to do with a lot that happens on this channel mainly, which is gaming. Most of my videos um, are based on gaming tutorials and career walkthroughs, especially in Football Manager. So it makes sense that I would cover something like this. I'm currently I was a university student. I just finished about a month ago, approximately. I studied business management, and this was a topic that I covered in my dissertation, which is basically the video game loot boxes and gambling. So, like, the issue around this topic and why the two are so closely linked, with criticism and legislations coming into recent years regarding this. So, obviously, loot boxes, you might not know what they are, you might know what they are, but we're going to go through every single thing in this little presentation that I've put up to kind of summarize this whole thing. So, let's take a look at the objectives of this little study or review that we're conducting in this video. So, firstly, we're going to look at what are loot boxes. It might sound stupid, most of you guys watching this right now probably do know what loot boxes are, because you, like me, you probably are a regular gamer and you've come across them very often. Next is, what is the controversy surrounding the loot boxes? Obviously, before we go into any evidence around why they are linked with gambling, we should take a step back and look at why they are controversial in the first place. Next is, what action have developers taken in the wake of the criticism for these loot boxes? After that, we will be taking a look at what the perspective of game developers is in regards to loot boxes. So what advantages do they see, or what advantages do they gain from these game mechanics in popular games that many people play? After this is, what are the similarities between loot boxes and gambling? Is there a potential link between loot boxes and gambling? And what action have various governments taken regarding these loot box in-game mechanics? So these are the objectives. Very important to establish some objectives, obviously, just to let you guys know what this presentation is going to be about and what sections we're going to be covering. So let's head straight into the first slide we have. So firstly, what is a loot box? So what is it? So a loot box is an in-game purchase consisting of a virtual container which awards the player with items and modifications based on random outcome. So this is just a typical box you would open in a game, whether you have to pay for it with real money or you have to purchase the virtual currency. Then with the virtual currency you purchase the loot box in game, or you can earn the loot box in game again by earning the virtual currency within the game. So that is basically what a loot box is. Anything you have to open that contains random awards where you're not guaranteed to win anything good, or you could even get literally you could get common items, rare items, or legendary items. That is basically what a loot box is. So let's head straight further into it. So loot boxes are considered to be a type of microtransaction. So microtransactions is basically in-game currencies that games have. So with FIFA, you have FIFA points. Overwatch, I'm pretty sure you have coins you can purchase. With Star Wars Battlefront 2, there were crystals you had to purchase to get the loot crates, to get star cards and everything else. But we're going to go into detail with that more later. So loot boxes have become very unpopular with gamers over the years as a result of the criticism and the controversy, which we will go over just after this. Purchase of loot boxes may often be required to get the best game experience, which is one of the few controversial headlines that have arisen from loot boxes. Some games may require you to open loot boxes for you to get better cards, so you can start competing at higher levels, it could be seen as unfair because you're not really guaranteed to get the items you need from those boxes, but you still have to pay for them. Games have become pay to win, as some items won through loot boxes are overpowered and provide competitive advantage. Very true. Games such as Star Wars heavily implemented loot crates where you got superheroes and star cards, and basically you could not cheat your way, but you can find an easier route and buy crystals to get more loot crates to open a bunch of these loot crates, so you can get more star cards essentially. in comparison to maybe me, I will just play the game naturally and just focus on getting those boxes, even though I'll probably get less than someone who wishes to purchase more at a time. Alright, so let's go through the first controversial headline. Many of you guys may know this. So, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, this was a game that followed on from Star Wars Battlefront 1. Despite reviews stating that the core gameplay was fun, exciting, and offered a wide variety of content, the dependence on Loot Crate was the ultimate criticism received by the game. So it was a much improved game from Battlefront 1, but as stated, one of the main things that ruined it is the Loot Crates and the dependence. You had to depend on them really hard to get further into the game, which that's when it really affects players, because it comes in the way of the original and natural game progress, the core progress of how you progress in the game. So as I was discussing earlier, so crystals are the in-game, or they were, I mean they still are. Crystals are the in-game currency form which is used to purchase loot crates in order to obtain better star cards to upgrade a character's ability. So in Battlefront 2, you literally had to, you would even get characters, heroes or villains from these loot crates. So not only did you have to wait and hope you would get a good hero or villain that you wanted, then you had to go through more loot crates to access the abilities that really gave you that competitive advantage, more damage, more health regeneration, and just things like that. So although crystals could be earned through gameplay, which was true, you could earn them by doing missions, certain objectives for characters, but ultimately the fastest way was to earn them. To earn them was to purchase them using real money. So if I was to just do objectives for characters, and get those crystals naturally, so I can then buy them naturally again, buy the loot crates naturally, I may then face up against a player who chose to buy those loot crates all in one day, maybe 5-10 of them, and he got twice the star cards I got because he purchased more. And then when I come up against him, he would ultimately have better abilities than me and possibly even better characters at his disposal to use. So this would offer players who chose to purchase crystals the opportunity to obtain more star cards to upgrade the characters and speed up the player's progress, as I just mentioned earlier. Lastly, this led to the players who purchased mass amounts of loot boxes to have an unfair competitive advantage over players who chose to progress through the game naturally solely by playing the game and complete objectives. Again, just as I stated before. So this is why loot boxes came into this controversial view, because they were starting to impact the main progress and the natural progress, should I say, of games. And obviously this will take a big hit on a player. Some people may like to open loot boxes because it surprises them, it gives them a satisfaction feeling and keeps them on edge. Some players don't really want loot boxes, they just want to progress through the game, and they don't really want to come up against someone who chose to buy his way through the game, and then ultimately get beaten by that person because he had more and better star cards as a result of taking the easier way out and purchasing them. Again, I don't mean to offend anyone who's purchased loot boxes. I've personally purchased a few Black Ops 3 black market boxes in the game, I remember, so I am a culprit in this loot box matter. But this is the first controversy, which is Star Wars Battlefront 2. Next up we have Call of Duty World War II. Now this was released a while ago, I think around 3 years ago. So Call of Duty, I don't think I need to do any more explaining. It's a first-person shoot game. World War II is now, it was before the last game, which is Black Ops 4, so it's the third latest entrance to the game, to the franchise, should I say, Call of Duty franchise. So the implementation of loot boxes is less aggressive in this Call of Duty game, and items won are purely cosmetic only and do not provide a competitive advantage. So already this is an improvement from Battlefront 2, which did provide you with competitive advantage if you chose to purchase those loot boxes, because then you have better start cards and better heroes than the other person. So that is already slightly better, but the controversy still remains, as we're going to go over the next few points. So the opening of loot boxes in-game highly simulates gambling slot machine in casinos, as players are met with fancy sound, digital effects when opening the crates. So this is when the first comparison is stricken between gambling and opening loot boxes, because what it's trying to insinuate is that when you open a loot box is like waiting for a slot machine to see if all your numbers match up. So you get excited. There is a lot of um, anticipation building up, so it really affects you emotionally. And this is what basically the Call of Duty game is trying to get out of you as well. So you can see how there may be comparisons, but at this stage, it's too soon to say whether this has a complete effect on the player. I'm just covering the controversial sides of the game. So before the loot content is revealed to the player, there is a short pause, as I mentioned, in order to build up anticipation, excitement, because you won't know what you get. You might get some really bad cards or weapons, not weapons in here, I think it's cosmetics only in this game. So it would be like stickers, maybe weapon variants, which again would not affect the game competitively. It would just provide a different appearance for the gun. So it would stir up anticipation, excitement within the user whilst waiting for those rewards to pop up. So other players in the lobby are present and can witness fellow friends or strangers obtain super items, because World War II used to have a headquarter, which was an open space for the whole lobby to run around and train together and use the shooting range. So they would ultimately also see people opening up loot boxes in the same lobby. And this may prompt them to engage in similar behavior and to gain similar results. If you see someone getting a legendary outfit or something and you really wanted that for a long time, it may make you want to go and purchase a loot box in the hope of getting that same outfit or achieving that same level of satisfaction of getting a legendary or super rare item. Ultimately, the heavy implementation of loot boxes, although not vital to the gameplay, as I mentioned, it did not provide a competitive advantage or progression. It did not take away from the progression. It did take away from the World War realistic experience, as they did not really add any historical value to the game and were purely a cash grab for developers. So loot boxes, you're in a lobby, I think it was in Normandy. It was a very historical location because of the World War II. And then, everything is realistic. You got the training camps, the bunkers, everything, the atmosphere. You got the players and military outfits, and then you just see loot boxes just dropping out the sky as people open them. So it did take away from the value of the game and didn't really provide anything good. It was just another way for developers to make more cash on top of what players already paid $60+ for the base game. So that was one of the main disadvantages of this game. So that's the second title we covered in the controversy. Let's head into the last title we're going to cover, which is the FIFA franchise. Now, this shouldn't be a surprise at all. FIFA have been very aggressive in their loot box mechanics, and we're just going to go into it now. So in 2018, the Gambling Commission survey showed that 31% of 11 to 16-year-olds have paid money or used in-game currency to open up loot boxes. So in the FIFA franchise, loot boxes come in the form of player packs. So just because it's not a crate you're opening, like literally a box you're opening, it doesn't mean that it's not a loot box. In this game, it's player packs. So users open these player packs to potentially obtain better players in the FIFA Ultimate Team game mode, which is basically at the center of attention for these developers for every FIFA, or the last few FIFA games specifically, because that's where it generates the most money, and that's where these player packs really come into play, as basically the only way you can obtain better players is by buying them off the market, and this is just through coins, FIFA coins, which you can earn. You can't buy FIFA coins. FIFA points are the ones you can buy, so that you buy FIFA points, and with those FIFA points, you can buy the player packs. You can also buy player packs with FIFA coins. So there is a bit of a balance, but there's always that option there that people always be willing to take to spend extra money on FIFA packs. I myself have bought FIFA packs in the past of real money. This is, so I've put a bit of cash into my account to buy those FIFA points and then buy those FIFA packs. So I am guilty as well in this situation. So concerns have been raised regarding children being drawn into addictive behavior by loot boxes, as they may feel pressured to compete with other players and therefore resort to buying player packs to obtain better players. Essentially, small kids may see their friends at school. They may talk about their ultimate team. One of them says he's got Ronaldo in his team, and then one of them has really bad players, so he could feel pressured to kind of compete with his friends or improve his team, and with better players, basically by buying more FIFA packs. as it basically, because buying it is the most easiest way rather than playing 10 matches to earn a certain amount of coins and then you can purchase them. So that's one of the main reasons. So since player packs offer rewards at random outcome and obtaining a better item is not always guaranteed, it is similar to gambling as it involves real money and the outcome is left to chance. So yet again, another comparison is stricken between gambling and loot boxes, because you're putting forward real money. You're not guaranteed to get a better item. You could get a worse item than you got in your last FIFA pack. And that is entirely because the outcome is left to chance. So it's random. Like what players you get is decided randomly by the game. Children are also exposed to monetary schemes in games such as FIFA as they do not understand the manipulative purposes of these in-game purchases. They're too young to understand. And that's why I'm doing this video as well, because we ourselves may not understand why we're buying these packs and how they could potentially be manipulative and how these developers get more money out of you for a game you've basically already paid the full price for. But again, there's always the argument for these loot boxes that they're just on the side, and they're a separate method if you wish to take to get these FIFA packs quicker. But in some games they are implemented very aggressively, such as Battlefront 2, which we covered. And also governments are challenged to review loot boxes in games and their association to gambling and include the monetary game mechanic within the Gambling Act. So that's still ongoing. Alright, so the next point we're going to be taking a look at is the action taken by developers in the wake of these claims that loot boxes are very similar to gambling and just a controversy all around covering it. Okay, so the companies in question here is EA and Activision. Activision made the Call of Duty franchise. Although they do not develop the games, they publish the game and have almost 60-70% of decisions. Like they make all the decisions, despite obviously, because basically they give the budget to a developing studio like Infinity Ward or Treyarch. They say, look, here you go, 5 million or 10 million, make a new Call of Duty game. So obviously it's kind of right that they would make all the decisions because it's their money and they're the publishing studio. And EA made the Star Wars game and the FIFA franchise as well. Okay, so first game is Star Wars Battlefront 2, which we covered earlier. So after heavy fan outrage from reviewers and fans, EA decided to remove the loot boxes entirely from the game in 2017 after the controversy, and soon after fans regained their passion and love for the game. And I myself can attest to this because I played Battlefront 2 when it came out, and I did not like the aggressive implementation and grinding for those cards and abilities. And I've played it when I heard that they removed them, I decided to give it a second chance, and I play it with my mate very often. And we have an absolute blast in the game. We've leveled our characters naturally. No more loot crates. You basically just have to level up your character now by playing the game, which is expected and natural. And then you have to level up to I think maximum level per character is 25. You get all the characters unlocked from the start. The only things you may choose to unlock with the in-game credits is outfits, which is entirely optional. Does not provide a game competitive advantage, again, just for looks, just for your personal preference. But the core gameplay mechanics have improved, and loot boxes, and it's as a result of loot boxes disappearing entirely. So you just level up your hero and then level up the star cards. You unlock more star cards as you level up the hero, which is completely understandable in how the game should have been from the start. So that's one game that has already achieved a lot since the disappearance of these loot boxes. Next up is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Now this is the latest iteration of the franchise. It came out in 2019. So with criticism following the heavy implementations of loot boxes in World War II, which we just discussed, and Black Ops 4, which had very similar loot box mechanics to World War II, which was the game after World War II, Black Ops 4. Activision decided to review their approach and remove the loot boxes out of their latest entry to the Call of Duty franchise, which is Modern Warfare, and have since gone with a seasonal battle pass approach, while certain microtransactions are still present but not game breaking, which is true. The microtransactions are still there, you can still buy COD points, and you can choose to spend them on outfits, again, not game breaking as they do not provide a competitive advantage, again, personal preference. You may choose to buy a battle pass every season, which is basically every 2-3 months a new season comes out. So you may choose to buy a battle pass, which gives you more items, which you can see what items you can get from it. So it's nothing of random outcome that you're gambling your money potentially on. So that's, again, a move in the right direction, in my opinion, as I've been a Call of Duty fan for the past few years. Next up is FIFA 20. So whilst EA have continuously refused to acknowledge a potential link between their loot boxes and gambling behavior, they have been forced to change certain aspects, such as I think in FIFA 18 or 19 they started revealing the odds of obtaining higher rated players and packs in their most recent entries to the FIFA franchise, and this has come in the criticism, in the wake of the criticism with these player packs, because essentially players would gamble money as if they chose to pay for it, would gamble their money in the hope of getting a good player, and you could end up not getting that player that you wanted. You could get something worse than you even imagined, and then you're just left feeling very unsatisfied, and you're not going to get your money back because you can't really ask for a refund because you've gambled that money. So EA, still a lot of work to do for them, but they have taken a small minuscule step in, you could say, the right direction by revealing these odds. So now you can see what's the chance of you getting an 85 plus rated player in that pack, which will influence your decision to go for that pack or pay for that pack basically. So there's also that. It is a small change, but I guess every little helps at this stage, as the loot box controversy is coming into the light more and more over the years, and the government is taking a look at these games and holding the developers more accountable for these actions. All right, so the next is the developers' perspective on loot boxes. So what benefit do they get out of them? Which is pretty obvious, but we're going to go into it anyway. So the benefits of loot boxes for developers are that they can spark emotional reaction from players, such as surprise, the emotion of feeling surprised when finding out the rewards, and the emotion of feeling satisfied when you get the item you really wanted from that loot box. So this may encourage them to come back and achieve these emotions again by purchasing loot boxes afterwards. The implementation of loot boxes ultimately increases the session time of users on video games, as loot boxes offer rewards at random outcome and thus encourages players to keep playing, to open more boxes in the hope of obtaining the desired item. So again, another benefit is more time spent on these games by players trying to grind for these loot boxes to really get those outfits that they want, or those weapon variants, or whatever the game may offer. So that's a very important benefit to developers, to see players, or to see your game having a constant rate of players since its launch, and these loot boxes can be attributed to that. Developers argue that loot boxes are implemented in order to cover the production cost of developing video games, and to sustain the game by adding new regular content throughout the game's lifecycle. This may be a true point. Making games, especially big AAA titles, is not cheap. But at the end of the day, they are charging the full price for them. So $60, about £50 here in England. So you can look at it two ways. Some games do add free content regularly, so it could be argued that these loot boxes help fund the effort and time taken by studios post-launch to create these content. But I just can't help to feel personally that it's just a cash grab, and it's just there just to make that more money on the side. But it is a valid point. The production cost of games is only going to increase with more games using motion capture and hiring actors. It's basically like movies. The effects are not cheap. It takes a lot. You need a big budget to make a big game these days. And rightfully so, I think, because games have become the main highlight in recent years, and they have really been up there with the most profitable industries. The gaming industry is really profitable. So loot boxes in the form of daily rewards are also implemented to keep players returning to the game, and the reward is increased significantly if the user logs into the game daily for a longer period of days to ensure continuous engagement between the player and the game is achieved. So maybe it doesn't even have to be a console game, it has to, maybe it's a phone game, like I'm not sure, but I've come across games that you log in, you get a bonus every day you log in. Oh, for example, I was playing a Game of Thrones game on my phone, and if you logged in for 7 days in a row, on the 7th day you get a very big reward, like materials for upgrading your troops, I think it was. So that's just one of the examples, but a lot of games employ this to increase the engagement players have with the game and to keep coming back, to keep playing. Next is we're going to be taking a look at the potential link between loot boxes and gambling. So the first study that I've taken a look at is titled "Video Game Loot Boxes Are Linked to Problem Gambling, Results of a Large-Scale Survey." Now this was by Zendel and Keynes in 2018 published. So the online survey, the study was conducted from an online survey with samples of gamers aged 18 and above, with the objective of understanding the link between loot boxes and gambling. 7,422 responses were collected, with 5,793 participants stating that they have purchased loot boxes and buying other in-game items with real money, and 1,629 participants stated that they did not do so. 89% of participants were male and 9% were female. Results show that users with gambling problems are likely to spend more on loot boxes and video games in comparison to users with lower problem gambling or non-existing severity of problem gambling. So these are the results. We can see that on the bottom right, on the table, this is straight from the study. We can see that problem gamblers are more likely to spend money at an increased rate than someone with non-problem gambling or a low-risk gambler. So this is the amount spent on loot boxes per month, which is the left figures in dollars, and on the bar is the severity of problem gambling. So this is just the first study. By the way, everything will be linked in the description if you guys want to look at these studies yourselves. Let's take a look at the second study now. So the study 2 investigates that problem gamblers spend less money when loot boxes are removed from a game. So it is a before and after study of Heroes of the Storm by David Zendel in 2019. So the game in question here is Heroes of the Storm. So the study conducted through an online survey with a sample of Heroes of the Storm players aged 18 and above, with 112 total participants. 80 participants male, 27 participants female. One of the hypotheses, or one of the notions put forward in the study, was that loot box spending is linked to problem gambling because they cause users to develop problem gambling, as well as users with existing gambling problems are more likely to spend money on loot boxes, which is something that was found in the last study as well. So let's take a look at the results. So results show that the spending on loot boxes on the game from users with higher problem gambling severity is significantly lower after the boxes were removed from the game in comparison to before the loot boxes were removed. So let's take a look at the picture in the bottom right. I hope it's big enough. So the table in the bottom right of the screen, I hope it's big enough for you guys to see. It contains the figures for the in-game spending before the removal of the loot boxes and after, as well as showing the mean difference, which is the reduction in spending, if there was a reduction in spending. So let's take a look at non-problem gamblers from the survey. These are from, results from the responses of the participants within the study. So non-problem gamblers, before the removal of the loot boxes in the game, they spent an average of $8.47. After the removal of the boxes, they spent basically the same on average, $8.47. Low risk gamblers, they spent, before the loot boxes were removed, an average of $11.37. After the removal, of loot boxes, they only spent $6.58. Moderate risk gamblers, they spent around $21.11 before the removal. After the removal, surprisingly, they spent more. They spent $38.88. And problem gamblers, so this is gamblers with, people with high severity of problem gambling, they spent before the removal $83.86, and after the removal they spent only $48.46. So quite a big drop in in-game spending once the presence of those loot boxes has been eliminated, which these results show. The only surprising figure is the moderate risk gamblers. In fact, they spent more after the removal of the loot boxes, but that could be maybe they because of the removal of the loot boxes, it could be possible that they bought skins separately, so they spent more on the skins buying them separately. Then maybe it would have cost them to potentially earn them from loot boxes. That could be a reason. So we have taken a look at the studies, but which show that there is a link between gambling and opening of loot boxes in video games. But let's take a look at the limitations to provide. So limitations of the studies to provide a more balanced argument. So although the studies shown in previous slides, it depicts a clear relationship between loot boxes and problem gambling, there are certain limitations we should consider. So the sample size of both studies may not be big enough to give conclusive results, considering there are millions of gamers out there. So the responses from these small samples of studies, they might not reflect the wider variety of gamers out there, so that should be considered. It may not impact, the loot boxes may not impact everyone the same, basically. Obviously, some people may be addicted to loot boxes and some people may not, but it's unconclusive if a wider range study cannot be given, so that must be considered as well. Thirdly, since the surveys were conducted online, certain responses given by participants may not be 100% true. Answers can be manipulated online, especially behind the screen. You're not there to see the person's reaction to the question to see if the response would be genuine, so there's also that to consider. More research is also needed to be conducted in relation to the link between gambling and loot boxes, as this controversy is fairly recent. Over the past few years, it's come into the light of the news headlines, and more study is needed to be done to find a concrete and conclusive link between the two. And let's take a look at the action government so far based on these loot boxes. So in 2018, we have loot boxes of video games that were banned by Belgium by the Gaming Commission, as they were deemed to be in violation of the gambling legislation. So that's one country who have taken a step forward towards taking action against these aggressive loot boxes, and have found them to be closely linked to the gambling behavior. Hence why they've chosen to deem it in violation of the gambling legislation. So that's interesting. That's a bold move by the country to protect its consumers, essentially. Next up, we have China and South Korea. So they require any developer which sells loot boxes and video games to disclose the probability of any given reward. So this is a less aggressive stance from the country. It's not really a legislation as it was in Belgium to ban them. This is just for developers or anyone who sells these loot boxes to disclose what the odds of getting those certain items are for any reward. Unfortunately, overall many countries still have yet to take any action on the loot box topic, as more research is conducted and more time is needed for legislations to be implemented. Again, strong research needs to be given and carried out by official authorities in order to establish a link, and then even then it may take a bit for it to be implemented, for legislations concerning these loot boxes to be actually implemented into the law. So there's a lot of time needed to firstly find the answers and then finding out how to go about preventing these loot boxes from affecting consumers, as predominantly younger children, as consumers. So that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed or found it interesting, this little presentation I put together for this loot boxes. This topic is very interesting. As a gamer, you've probably been affected by it and maybe not realized. But I hope this video has given you more insight into the loot boxes and how it may be associated with gambling. Maybe has given you a new way of looking into it. Maybe what I've just told you, it's something you already knew, and it bears no difference on your judgment on these loot boxes. But it's an interesting topic to cover, and I thought I'd share it with you guys as well. And yeah, put in the comments, what do you guys think about loot boxes? Have you guys ever bought loot boxes? Have you ever found it to be a bit aggressive? Has it tempted you to come back to it? Maybe like a week later you wanted to get better players and you were too busy or tired to grind through the game and play a couple matches or whatever the game required you to do to earn those credits and naturally open up those loot boxes? Or did you go take the easy way out and purchase those loot boxes? Again, purchasing loot boxes, nothing wrong with it. If it doesn't affect you, it should be completely fine. But that's the thing, it does potentially encourage gambling behavior, especially in younger children who would rather choose to take the easy way out and use their parents' credit card to buy players and then find out they didn't really get the reward they wanted. So they go again and again and again, and it kind of creates this addictive behavior as you kind of get a kick out of opening these. You get like a rush basically out of opening these loot boxes. But again, this is not for everyone. Some people just buy one box in their lifetime, or buy like two loot boxes like every couple months. Or some people can afford it financially and they do not get addicted. There's so many other factors that come into play. So not everyone has the same reaction to these loot boxes as others. So it's always good to take a look at things in separate views as well, rather just one way of looking at it, that loot boxes are gambling and you do get addicted by it. It's not for everyone. Not everyone gets addicted. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.